Greetings, good morning, and welcome to Mind the Moment. This, my friends, is our coffee house in the cloud, a place for us to gather together, build community, get centered, and make the most of the present moment. It is July 17th, 2020, which just so happens to be National Tattoo Day. And so, in spite of having been raised to never show my shoulders in public, I thought I would risk sharing my first tattoo, which was established on my body in December of 2013. So in case you can't get a good look at it there, this is it is a piece of calligraphy by Thich Nhat Hanh. It says, "I have arrived, I am home." You can actually see it inscribed here on the stone outside of his center in, I believe that is upstate New York. Now, so the I think I would have preferred the present tense formulation of this sentiment. I am arriving, I am home, but I'm not one to argue with one of the great meditation masters of our age. Now, the circular design is referred to as an Enzo. Tara, I think I saw an Enzo on your notebook cover. Is that right?
Oh.
Yes. So it's keep that up. It's a popular form of art in Zen schools of meditation. It's a rarely ever a complete circle, but this kind of gap-toothed grin resulting from the fact the shape is made by the artist with one single stroke. So one master of the form refers to that opening in the circle as the imperceptible pause at the pinnacle, or the subtle moment when inhalation becomes exhalation. I like to think of that opening as the moment when one catches one's breath, or catches up with one's breath, or at least catches a glimpse of one's breath. And for me, the Enzo is a reminder that, as we use our perceptive faculties to draw in the world, we inevitably are kind of drawing a circle around the world, and in doing so, trapping it within our own habits of perception, something we'll talk about later. And so it strikes me as a good thing to always aspire to leave a little gap to let new information slip in. As another Enzo artist noted, form emerges from emptiness, but also always holds emptiness. So I'm John Roberts from Harvard Pilgrim Health Care's Mindfulness program, and I am pleased to be leaving a mark in the present moment this morning with none other than Tara Healey, the founder and director of our program. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning, John, and good morning, everyone. Welcome.
So in just a second here, I'll hand things over to Tara to lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation. Following that, we'll do some Q&A together and then wrap things up around 9 a.m. Now, at the bottom of your screen, you may have seen the option to open up a chat box. Please use that chat box to type in any questions or comments you might have. I can see some folks are already doing so welcome to everyone already typing. We would love to know what's on your minds this morning. And on that note, Tara, is there anything that you'd like to prompt folks at home to comment on as we're getting started?
Yes. So, lately, over these past few days, I have been thinking about hope. Like, what has me hopeful these days? And so and I'll actually kick it off, because one of the things I have been noticing a fair amount this week is kind of a sense of generosity. And whether that's driving or in a store, somewhere, in different places, I've noticed increased generosity. And so there are certain things about this incredibly difficult time that we're in. I wouldn't say unprecedented, because historically we've had so many difficult times in our world. But I would say there are little things that I am noticing with regularity around hope. So my question would be, what leaves you hopeful these days? And no matter how small, what leaves you hopeful?
All right, so we'd love to have folks comment on that there in the chat box while people are typing. A big thank you to everyone for taking the time to be with us this morning and with each other. Do keep in mind that if you're living in an area of the world where tattoo parlors have reopened, it's always a good idea to tip your tattoo artist in advance. Keep in mind, too, that only Tara and I will be able to see anything that you type in the chat box. And if we don't read your particular question or comment out loud, please know that we do read and appreciate them all. And that before we close, we'll point out some other ways that you can keep in touch with us, too. All right. So, in terms of what is bringing people a feeling of hope, somebody says the protests, the activism. Somebody says, my first baby's due date is tomorrow. All right, that's excellent. Somebody says, I'm hopeful for the fall. You know, that's interesting because it's a little bit cool this morning. I was getting
Yeah.
that sort of like little reminder of what autumn feels like. Somebody says, my deepening relationships. Oh, that's wonderful. Seeing positive signs for the, how the country is moving in terms of a better, sense of openness and inclusivity. Somebody says, what makes me hopeful is my growing ability to handle great uncertainty. Yes, you've come to the right place. So maybe on that note, Tara, let me turn it over to you to take us away.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks so much, John. And thank you, everybody. I love reading all of these comments, and it inspires me too. And just really being on the lookout for what can support us these days, I think is incredibly helpful. So on that note, we're actually going to go right into a guided meditation, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. All right. So go ahead and settle in as you normally do for practice, and remember that sitting or standing, those either is the fine option. And allow the eyes to close or remain open if it feels more comfortable. And if you decide to keep the eyes open, just gaze downward a little bit. And so just notice the whole body and how you're holding yourself. And notice the micro movements that are necessary to keep the spine upright. If you're standing, to keep the body upright. What's required in order to do that? And it is kind of amazing that the body knows how to do this, that, we can sense when we're tipping over, we need more stability in a certain part of the body. And, we naturally make those adjustments. And see if you can soften the body around the spine. So dropping the shoulders, resting the arms. You're holding yourself in a way that's not too loose and not too tight. Settling in, surrendering your weight, and allowing the support of the earth to hold you, just releasing in. And with a posture that is engaged and alert and upright, let's begin by taking a deep inhalation through the nose and a little bit longer exhalation through the mouth. Take one more deep breath on your own as a way to begin to connect with the body's rhythm of breath. So taking a deep inhalation and exhalation. And as you are settled into the posture that you've chosen, just for a moment becoming aware of sound in the room or outside of the room. There's no need to make a label of what is making the sound, but just simply hearing, just engaging the sense of hearing. And as you feel ready, allowing sound to, of course, remain in the background. There's nothing we really need to do with it. Sounds will be arising and passing in the room we're in, or perhaps outside of the room, as they naturally will. Beginning to bring the awareness back into the body, just becoming aware of the whole body, aware of the points of contact with the body and the surface. All along the back of the body, or perhaps the soles of the feet. beginning to narrow the focus of attention from wide body, whole body awareness to a more narrow focus of the sensations present when you breathe. And just allowing the breath to come and go as it naturally will. We don't have to change it or make it different in any way. So inhaling and exhaling, and just begin to notice where the sensation is most prominent for you today. It can change daily. So as you breathe in and as you breathe out, where are you noticing that sensation? Belly, abdomen, chest, nostril, or just overall sense of whole body, breathing in and whole body breathing out. And noticing where the mind is, and gently returning to your anchor. And again, noticing where the mind is, softening the body and returning to your anchor. And as we bring this meditation to a close, may we be peaceful and at ease. May our hearts be soft and open. May we be safe and protected, and our bodies healthy and strong. And as you feel ready, allowing your eyes to open if they were closed, and reconnecting with your surroundings.
Thank you, Tara. Thank you very much. So, folks, I want to make sure that everyone watching feels welcomed and encouraged to ask Tara any questions that you might have for her using the chat box. While you think and type, however, I will get us going by asking Tara one or two questions of my own.
Yes, and I just want to underscore, John, what you said. Like, I'm really looking forward to engaging with you. So, please ask away. No question is too small or too big. If I can't answer it, I'll let you know.
So, Tara, there's this term I heard the other day, which I really love, which is reiterated existence. There are different ways to parse this phrase, which has a lot packed into it. But when I think of this idea of reiterated existence, I think about habits and patterns, specifically the urge to do the same thing over and over again. So like the other day, I was eating mashed potatoes, and after about the 34th bite, I realized I was only continuing to eat the mashed potatoes because I liked the way they felt in my mouth, not because I was actually hungry. Similarly, several times a day, I'll catch myself in this cycle of looking up anything on the internet that happens to float into my mind, even if it's completely irrelevant. Like, what's the weather doing in Copenhagen right now? Or are cat years the same as dog years? Or what book won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1947? So my question for you is, when a person gets caught up in that hamster wheel doing the same thing over and over again, can mindfulness help us stop? And how can mindfulness even help us notice that we've gotten caught up in the first place?
Really, it's a really interesting question, John, because very few of us escape without some habit patterns. I mean, really, I think we all have, various patterns and habits. And one of the things mindfulness helps is distinguish between useful, productive, skillful habits and those that are not so helpful. So it offers a way to distinguish. I think I think your question too, like on your 34th bite, it's like you're full, right? But you almost don't even realize you're full, and it tastes so good. But the moment that you do recognize, as far as I'm concerned, it's rare, it's never really too late. So it's like the moment of recognition. It's like when we're lost in thought and then we wake up from it and we are, oh, whoa, where was I? Like in that moment, you now are in the driver's seat of your attention. You have much greater facility over how you now aim and sustain your attention. And so in that moment, you can drop the fork, and it's a really good opportunity to just check in with yourself. Like, how am I feeling right now? What is my level of fullness? What am I noticing? What are the physical sensations? What are the thoughts around this? So that noticing, and then a desire to go back because it's so good, right? So you can actually then, that's also a choice point. Like, I don't really need to do this. And that, I'll find myself in that habit loop with chocolate. Like this desire to, go back because it's so good. And almost without exception, when I don't bring the lens of awareness, mindful, or I do, but I don't care and I do it anyway, most of the time it doesn't taste as good and I feel somewhat regretful. So, yeah, I mean, and I also think that the more we practice, just, day-to-day practice, the more our habit patterns of mind will become apparent. So we'll see, oh, I tend to do this thing with mashed potatoes or chocolate or, something else. I mean, there's so many things that we can think about. That could even be a habit pattern with a family member of combativeness. And then, oh, okay, well, now I have a choice.
I love what you say about dropping the fork, because it's almost like a mic drop. It's like, you know what, I'm dropping the fork, right? But there is something about the physicality, because which I think is important, because sometimes we think about, or I think about these as like battles waging in my head, like potatoes, no potatoes. But there is a way that we can bring a physical stance of like just kind of like maybe just like literally leaning back from the plate, and thinking, all right, I guess getting a little bit of distance, if only a few centimeters, just to
Yeah.
mimic the distance in the mind or from the
And
thoughts.
really dropping into the body, like coming out of the intellect in a way and just drop into the body. How are things?
So let me just take this question one twist deeper.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times when I've caught up in that hamster wheel of habit of reiterating existence, I find myself thinking, well, this isn't really doing anyone any harm. Like, is it really such a bad thing that I'm eating the 35th bite of mashed potatoes? So,
Yeah.
like, how easy on ourselves is it okay to be? Is there anything really so bad about allowing ourselves to indulge in the comfort of mindless activity and distraction?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, again, I would say, you know, how's it working for you? Like, are you happy? Like, is this making you, you know, because I would say that more often than not, when I've overindulged, I've just kind of gone over that overindulgement, that I actually don't feel good, But I think sometimes like these emotions and feelings are pretty subtle. But again, the more we have a regular practice, we start to see with greater clarity, like having that 34th bite. It's really good while it's going down, right? It's like good while it's going down, but is it really doing it for me? And this isn't to say to, I feel like in this practice, it's a way of learning to like fully enjoy life, like the fullness of life, and the recognition of the ever-changing nature of things, and yeah, so I think I guess I'll stop there.
Well, this is reminding me of something that you and I were talking about, well, probably a few days ago, Tara, which is this idea of, I think you refer to it as the fleeting happiness versus foundational happiness, which I
Right.
think is what you're pointing to. I'm not sure if you want to say anything more about that, or like what's the
Yeah, no,
distinction.
that's exactly, yeah, no, that's right, John. Yeah, I think that what I am learning over years in this practice is that it does bring a foundational happiness as opposed to a situational happiness. And recognizing situational happiness, it's seductive because it makes you feel good, but it's temporary. It's always fleeting, so it's a temporary. And I think, with regular practice, you can more fully enjoy everything, like there's lots of things you can more fully enjoy because, you know, I mean, with the things that are really good, we tend to not want them to go away. So there can be a little bit of holding on, a little bit of sort of clinging to the experience, which isn't pleasant, that's not pleasant. Whereas when we can start to see how things actually are, that thoughts, emotions, body sensations, events in our life arise, they do their thing and they move. This is just so we learn through practice in much deeper ways than just what one of my teachers always called ordinary awareness. We start to understand kind of the workings of our world and our mind in much deeper ways that actually brings much more ease.
So someone in the chat box wrote, I often find myself scripting arguments in my head that inevitably never take place. Joseph Goldstein calls them dead ends, and I catch myself going down one and pulling myself back to the present moment. So I'm going to be honest with you. I do the exact same thing. This is
Yeah.
probably the main thing I noticed when I first started practicing mindfulness, when I first started meditating, was this idea that I was scripting these elaborate, like sometimes like with staging and like stage directions. And I was like, what is the point of this? And I do, part of
Yeah.
me is like, well, it's almost like rehearsal for, something, and that could be good. But a lot of it's just like, it's like the most boring play that, like, it's like the play that your friend has convinced you to go to, and then you go to and you're like, wow, this is boring. And these are the plays in my head as they
Yeah. These, whatever we incline the mind toward on a regular basis, we train and strengthen. And so I love that quote. I have heard Joseph Goldstein say this many times, just dead end. And, we get caught in these thought loops, and they really are dead ends most of the time. And that's not to say we don't occasionally have creative ideas or thought. We absolutely do. But a lot of it is a dead end. And that's true with, like, I can have a habit pattern of worry. So I have a grandmother, and then my mother, and then it gets passed down, and, just ruminate, worry. And then Joseph will say, dead end, right? And he's so right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'm loving this idea, literally, of this metaphor of the dead end, because I feel like, some streets you can start walking down, you don't know they're dead ends until you get to the end of it. Whereas I think what you're pointing towards, in practice, you eventually get to a point where you can just sort of glance down the street and you can be like, that's a dead end, versus glancing down a different street and being like,
you catch it much sooner. Yeah, you catch it much sooner. That's the benefit of daily practice. You start to catch these. Yeah.
Well, so I feel like I'm gonna. I should bring us towards the closing, unfortunately. But so we'll be back with you every Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. You can find the links to these sessions and other resources at our main site at harvardpilgrim.org/mindfulness. If you have questions for our experts, please send them to askmtm@harvardpilgrim.org, and we will get them answered. Or feel free to leave me a voicemail at 617-509-7047. Now, you can see what we're up to on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/mindthemoment. And you can rewatch this session, older sessions, and introductory sessions featuring Tara Healey herself on our YouTube page. So I do want to close out with just one additional thought in honor of National Tattoo Day. Tattoos, by definition, are flush with the flesh of the body, but at the same time, you can't say that they're identical to the flesh. And to me, this makes tattoos a little bit like our thoughts. As we say in the mindfulness world, sometimes our thoughts are not who we are, even if our thoughts sometimes seem to be inseparable from the sense of self. There is no permanent feature of any of us that any of us are stuck with. Tattoos, I think, are a good reminder of this. People talk about tattoos being permanent, but I can tell you from personal experience that's not true. This tattoo is very different from what it was 6 years ago. It's become much more faded. It has a different quality to it. So the tattoos are for me a good reminder that even things I may insist are permanent are very much subject to change, up to and including my own physical form. A realization which actually inspired my second tattoo, which simply says impermanent. I'll show you my other tattoos the next time National Tattoo comes around on a Tuesday or a Friday. In the meantime, Tara, I'd love to thank you for helping us hammer some good habits into our bodies and minds this morning with your guidance and with your practice. Yeah. I'm wondering if you happen to have a resource that you could leave folks with, that they can take with them as they continue to build their practice. And perhaps I should have prepped you for that better.
Hang on.
Okay, good. That's good.
I'm gonna share, since Joseph Goldstein came up. I'm gonna share what I think is the seminal book on mindfulness.
Okay, so that's a Mindfulness, a practical guide to awakening by Joseph Goldstein. Very good. Very good.
So it's going to be more Buddhist. So just so people understand that. But it's a really, really fantastic book. And I think I'm noticing, people are offering a few things here. Okay, love the book. Yeah. So thank you so much, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be with you on Friday. I look forward to it. And
it's been a great conversation, Tara. Thank you for engaging with my sometimes
That's all right.
Not completely clear questions, but you're doing a great job of helping even me understand what I should be asking. So that's fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And by the way, it was All the King's Men by Robert Penn Warren that won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 1947. We will see you soon, and have a momentous day and weekend. Bye-bye.